You know, creating the life, sales performance, and business success that you dream of, it takes more than just a better mindset. Mindset's important, but it takes more. And it takes more than just having a positive attitude. It takes action. Will Rogers once said that even if you're on the right path in life, you'll get run over if you just sit there. So we have to combine the mindset with the action. And to do this, I want to talk to you about a concept I've developed called the box. I want you to imagine that right here, I have a box, a crate. And in that crate is everything I need to build a beautiful motorcycle. All the parts, all the components, the engine, the frame, the handlebars, the wheels, everything's in there. And piece by piece, component by component, I begin to remove the parts of that motorcycle. And as I remove the motorcycle from the box, I begin to assemble it correctly. In other words, I put the wheels where the wheels go. I put the engine where it's supposed to go. I put the handlebars where they're supposed to go. I assemble the motorcycle correctly. At some point, I look into the box, and the box is empty. I have successfully removed all the components and assembled them properly. So when I step back to admire this beautiful thing I've created, what are the odds that I realize that instead of building a motorcycle out of the motorcycle parts, I accidentally baked a cake, right? You can't bake a cake out of motorcycle parts. If it's a motorcycle in the crate, it's a motorcycle outside the crate. If it's a motorcycle in the box, it's a motorcycle outside the box. The reality is whatever is in there is all that I can build. Now that box is a metaphor for your mind, and your life is already in there. Your money, your relationships, and your health. Every part of your life is already in your mind, in your box, in its component form. Your money, your relationships, everything is in your box in the form of your expectations, your decisions, your thoughts, and your choices. And what happens is that we go through life. Now, as you go through your day, you're going to make a ton of different decisions. And every time you make a decision, you're going to reach in that box and pull out a little piece of your life. In other words, you got to go to lunch today. When I go to lunch, I got to make a decision. What am I going to eat? Well, let me reach in the box and find out. If I reach in that box and I pull out a cheeseburger decision, I pull out a piece of my health and fitness. On the other hand, if I reach in that box and I pull out the salad decision, I pull out a different type of health and nutrition in my life. So that means my health is not a reflection of some random event. It's simply a reflection of the decisions that I've made about what I eat every single day. These decisions are small decisions. They're what I call seemingly inconsequential decisions. They don't seem like anything. They're just small decisions. But over the time of years that pass, we pull out our life piece by piece. Let's say I get my paycheck. And I get the paycheck, I got to decide, am I going to save 10% of this check or am I going to spend it all this weekend? Well, let me reach in the box and find out. I reach in the box. If I pull out the save 10% decision, I pull out a little piece of my financial future, don't I? On the other hand, if I reach in and I pull out the decision to spend it all this weekend, I pull out a different financial future. So my financial condition is not some random series of events. It's simply a reflection of the decisions I've made about money through the course of my life. In our relationships, let's say I go home from work tonight and I have an argument with my wife. I got to make a decision. How am I going to handle myself? How am I going to conduct myself? Well, let me reach in the box and find out. If I reach in that box and I pull out some yelling and screaming and fear and intimidation, I pull out a little piece of that relationship, don't I? On the other hand, if I reach in that box and I pull out some patience, some love, some understanding, and a different tone of voice, I pull out a different relationship with my wife. You see, the reality is your life is not a random series of events. Your life is the accumulation of the seemingly inconsequential decisions you made 1,000 times about 1,000 different issues in your life. One by one, decision by decision, we pull our life out of that box. And then here's what happens. We go through life, making thousands of decisions every single day, millions of decisions over the course of our life, seemingly inconsequential decisions, right? They don't seem like a big deal. It's just a hamburger. It's just 10% of my money. It's just one paycheck, right? No big deal. But what happens, you go through life, and that box follows you around. And all day long, you're reaching in that box, and you're making decisions and choices, attitudes and beliefs. And at some point, you get to the end of the line, the end of that relationship, the end of that career, the end of that life. And when you look back at your life, you look back at that career, you look back at that relationship, you're going to discover that your life is a perfect reflection of whatever's in the box. Because you can only pull out what's in the box, right? If I got a life of love and prosperity and health and happiness in that box, I can't reach in and accidentally pull out poverty and struggle, right? On the other hand, if I have a box full of fear and anxiety and hatred and resentment, I can't accidentally pull out a life of happiness and prosperity. You have to have it in the box first. So the key to this thing is, what's in your box? What's in your box about money, about relationships and health? And by the way, where the hell did it come from? Who put it in there? I mean, think about it. You come into this planet with a clean slate. When you're born, you don't have any beliefs or attitudes about relationships or money or health. You don't know nothing about nothing. But you grow up and you begin to make observations. Observations about how mom and dad treat each other. Observations about how other adults interact in relationships. We observe how people spend money and make money and earn money. We observe how people eat and exercise. And little by little by little, our box gets filled up with expectations. Next thing you know, you're 18, 20 years old, and what do you start doing? You start going through life pulling those same things back out, making the seemingly inconsequential decisions that don't seem to matter, but over time they begin to accumulate and create the quality of your relationships, your financial prosperity, and your health. It's not rocket science. Think about it this way. How long have we known that smoking's bad for our health? In this country, about 100 years. And yet a lot of people still smoke. Now, smoking is not a moral issue, right? Smokers love their kids, pay their bills, pay their taxes, but people love to smoke. But think about this. Why would somebody smoke cigarettes knowing what we know about the impacts of tobacco and nicotine on our health? Well, the answer is very easy. Smoking won't kill you today. Whatever implications there are, whatever problems there are about smoking, they're 20 or 30 years down the road. And as a result, because there's no immediate impact, we don't pay any attention to it. That's just human nature. That's how we are. But think about this for a second. Take the most avid smoker that you know, but instead of giving him one seemingly inconsequential cigarette at a time, give him an entire year's worth of cigarettes at one time, right? 2,000 or 3,000 cigarettes. Roll them up at one big giant cigarette. Take them to him and say, hey, smoke them if you got them, pal, right? Would he smoke 2,000 cigarettes at one time? Even the most avid smoker, would he smoke 2,000 cigarettes at one time? Of course not. And if you ask him why not, what would he say? He'd probably say, it'd make me sick. It might kill me. Yeah. Smoking 2,000 cigarettes at one time will make you sick, and it might even kill you. But here's the crazy part. Smoking 2,000 cigarettes, one seemingly inconsequential cigarette at a time, will make you sick and kill you too. It just takes longer. It's the same 2,000 cigarettes. This is the insanity of the human mind. We make the right decision when it's a 2,000 cigarette decision, kind of a no-brainer decision, but you give me those same 2,000 cigarettes one at a time, and I make the exact opposite decision and say yes to every single one. This is the insanity of the human mind. And it affects us in business and sales. For example, let's say it's December 31st. You just ran your last sales call of the year. You go back to your office and there's a wad of cash, $50,000 on your desk. And it's your bonus. It's your extra income for the extra effort, the extra calls, the extra training, all the extra energy you put into your career that year. This 50 grand represents the extra stuff that you did. And while you're sitting there counting it and imagining all the crazy things you're going to do with this money, one of your customers calls you and says, hey, I heard you got 50 grand on your desk. Can I have it? Right? What do you say? Of course not. Not no, but hell no. That's my money. It's my family's money. What if they ask you a second time? Come on, man, I need the money. Would you give it to them? Of course not. What if they said, hey, let's split. Let's split the difference. You give me half, you keep half. Would you give them half your 50 grand? Of course not. Why? Because it's a $50,000 decision. You make the right decision when it's $50,000 and 2,000 cigarettes, right? They're big decisions. But here's the thing. You take that 50 grand and you break it down into what you have to do every single day to make an extra 200 bucks a day, 200 bucks a day, 1,000 bucks a week, 50 grand a year. You take the activities that you have to do to make that extra 200 bucks a day, and sometimes we make the wrong decision and we give the money away. We give it to our customers in the form of discounts or products and services that we never even offer. We give our money away 200 bucks at a time. You wouldn't give it away 50 grand at a time. You can't give it away 200 bucks at a time. Here's the thing. Why would somebody give 200 bucks a day away in efforts they don't take and products they don't offer, discounts they give away? Why would they give that 200 bucks away if we know it's 50 grand at the end of the year? Well, it's the same reason people smoke. It won't kill you today. So the key to success in life is to figure out what would I do in the 2,000 cigarette moments of my life? What would I do in the $50,000 cigarettes or $50,000 moments of my life? And then make those same exact decisions when it's only one cigarette and 200 bucks. The seemingly inconsequential decisions. The reality is whatever's in your box is going to dictate what you do in those seemingly inconsequential moments. How do you treat your spouse? What do you do with your money? What are your beliefs about money? We all have various beliefs, which we're going to be talking a lot about. Your beliefs about money, your beliefs about relationships, your beliefs about health and fitness. We're going to talk about how those beliefs and the things that you learned growing up, how you could be repeating those same types of behaviors even if you didn't like them. I'll give you a perfect example. When I was growing up, one of the things I hated the most is when my dad would yell at me. I used to call my dad Old Yeller sometimes, right? And so when I got my son, I made the decision that I would never yell at him, right? Would never lose my temper with him. Then, of course, he became a teenager and all bets are off, right? I remember one night he comes home after curfew. He's about 16, 17 years old. I got my son, I got custody when he was 10 years old. 16, 17 years old, he comes home late one night, 30 minutes after curfew. He walks through the door, and all of a sudden, my father's voice comes out of my body. And I start yelling at my son, saying the same things my dad used to say to me. Boy, I brought you into this world. I'll take you out. You live under my roof. You live under my rules, right? Same stuff my dad said. So, and I hated it when my dad did me. But when my dad did it to me, guess what? It went in my box. And that became the standard of how you could talk to kids. And until I changed that, I repeated the same behavior, even though I didn't like it. So this is one tiny example of what we're going to get into in this program. But we get all these experiences that go in the box. And you reach in and you pull those things out. So the question is, what's in your box? What's in your box? How did you get it in there? And is it consistent with what you want today? My dad used to tell me rich people were crooks. Well, today I want to be rich. I had to get those beliefs on the same page. So that's what we're going to talk about with respect to the box. So start by evaluating what's in your box and clear out that which doesn't serve you or help you achieve the life, sales, performance, and income of your dream.